Welcome, folks, to the DV podcast.
We're gonna be talking about the life of in a concentration camp in Auschwitz. So there was a lot of forced labor. Kind of like how we had in America is basically you're a slave. You don't get much pay. I don't even think you got paid. You're just a forced worker. And then they were forced to do work in inhumane environments. It was horrible.
Talking more about Auschwitz. Auschwitz was a forced labor and a killing kind of camp. So if you weren't working, you weren't living. So you kind of had
200 pumped, basically.
Yeah. So.
And then the food, it wasn't really there. It was you had soup, which was made up of a couple vegetables. It was the tomatoes and then broth from the cooking. And then you got a little bit of bread. And then sometimes you got fruit. Not very much, but I think it was not at all. Maybe once a month, but if you were even alive that long.
So, talking about the food, they got fed, I think, twice a week, if that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're rarely eating, but constantly working.
Yeah, working day and night.
So, and then the hygiene there, not very good. No toilets. I remember watching a video in 8th grade of the concentration camps and how they just had beds along the ends of the barns, and then the middle was just the bathroom.
Yeah.
It was in front of everyone.
And then overcrowding was a big thing. And when you're going to the bathroom, you could run duos on the toilet. There was toilets right next to each other, and you were literally running duos while taking the dump. So yeah, overcrowding was it was pretty bad. It's just crazy. And then it's all unsanitary. So
a lot of diseases were going on.
You're not really getting a clean toilet. It's it's pretty bad. So, and the barracks were all cramped with the bedding. And then it was very minimal.
A lot of people had to share beds.
Yeah.
And then, so if we go to the topic of Anne Frank. So Anne Frank died. All right, stop. Anne Frank died from a disease she lasted till the end of the war. Then all of a sudden, they found her. Well, actually, they found their family. Anne Frank got split up with her entire family and friends, and didn't end up getting murdered. She ended up dying from disease due to those harsh conditions. And the violence and abuse in that time was not good, with guards and the Nazis constantly beating on them and forcing them to do stuff. And if you didn't cooperate, it wasn't going to end too good. So.
Yeah, they definitely could have used some neurogum. It's neurogum helps you if you're feeling tired. You could just chew it, and then it makes you hyper, So they could do more work if they had some neurogum. They weren't getting haircuts, so no low taper fades, Okay, on to the next. There was a lot of violence, so
I already said that.
Yeah. You did not.
I did.
You did not.
So separation and loss. So this was pretty common. So just like I said with Anne Frank, when they got caught, they just got completely separated.
Yeah. And
it just didn't end well for them. So, Anne Frank, I think, was by herself, and then I think
she met up with her one of her siblings, right?
Yeah, I think they met up with her sister, I think.
Yeah.
But parents and the youngest were together.
And then usually it was the women and then the children were not killed first. It was usually the men were killed first, especially if they're bigger, I think. And then there was also a lot of fights with the guards, mainly because they're just stuck there, And then they were they had beatings a lot. If they that was their punishment. It was just So
not good times.
Yeah, you're not making a mistake there. And yeah, they were also tortured a lot. So, and then, a lot of, if you get hurt that much, you'll probably die off soon.
So we also got medical experiments. So the Nazis used to use prisoners or the Jews to do medical experiments on for like medicines and stuff for them. I mean, they're not going to use the medicine on
Yeah.
the prisoners if they ended up getting sick, obviously, because most of them died from disease. So they tested all those on that, and if it worked, it got sent out to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we changed it, like we do animals, but they just did the prisoners, just find out what was going on. And then,
So now we're going to be talking about we're going to compare and kind of contrast life in Auschwitz compared to Flossenburg, Germany. So, starting off with Auschwitz, it was a concentration camp and a forced labor. So and extermination. I mean, that's what everybody really knows it as. But
yeah, I'd say Auschwitz is probably like the most well known.
yeah, it definitely is. That was the highest killing concentration camp ever. So life there wasn't too good. There was over 1.1 million people murdered, mostly Jews. Mass extermination. Way too many people got killed, sadly, during those times. And the selection, they split you off immediately. I mean, if you were elder, you probably didn't make it a day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then, the harsh conditions and the medical experiments, it just didn't last too well there. So basically, if you weren't working, you're either getting experimented on or you're sent to the gas chambers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this went on from 1940 to 1945. So right about like the prime time of the entire war. And then Flossenburg was primarily a labor camp. This was operated in 1938 to 1945, so about a 2-year difference there. And then there was a lot of victims, not as many as Auschwitz, but about around 30,000 died out of 100,000 total prisoners. That's pretty crazy. Like you have, 70% chance to live, but there was a lot of forced labor, just like in Auschwitz. Prisoners worked nearby, like the stores and then like the quarries. And then there was not really gas chambers like there was in Auschwitz, which is kind of a big difference if you really think about it. And then in Flossenburg, it was like diverse. So like Auschwitz was mainly just Jews and stuff, and then Flossenburg was it included Jews, of course, and then it had a lot of political prisoners and then Soviet people. Held as prisoners, and then there was a lot of executions toward the end of the war. I mean, it kind of makes sense, they knew the war was coming down to it, so they just got rid of the stock. This was mainly in 1945, and then just mass executions everywhere.
Yeah, when you compare Flossenburg to Auschwitz, it's just a completely different world, pretty much. Like, imagine living in Flossenburg and then, like, being transported to Auschwitz. I mean, it's a whole different place. I mean, you're going from just working to, like, if the work's probably going to be harder in Auschwitz because there's more people. So if you're doing stuff, you're doing it for other people, not necessarily yourself.
And then Auschwitz was, it was like triple the size of Flossenburg because and there was still way too many people because it was just so overpopulated. And then that was the main hit point. So
I did not know this about Flossenburg and how they didn't have any gas chambers.
Okay.
I thought every concentration camp, to be honest, was a execution camp, not necessarily just only a forced labor camp.
Yeah.
But that's it's a relieving thing to know, but not necessarily, because they're still being held as prisoners. So, I mean, hard topic to speak on.
Yep.
Just in general. World War II is not a great time.
Yeah.
For anybody. So.
All right, that'll do it, folks.
See ya.